Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the main stage of Event Tech Live 2021. Day number 5 of a fantastic week it's been so far. If you're loving it, let us know in the chat box. It'd be great to hear from you. Let us know where you're joining us from today. Just a reminder of what is still to come. We've got another 3 sessions here on the main stage today, but at 3 o'clock we have our final roundtable discussion of the week using technology to build event attendance. So if you want to be part of that, get registered. That is 3 o'clock till 3:45 today. But if you're staying here on the main session, the 2 o'clock one today is Savvy Sponsorships, securing the best sponsorship opportunities for your event. And I'm delighted to be joined from Eventistry by Alicia. I'm going to welcome Alicia May. Hello, Alicia.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure. I'm glad you have been able to join us today. Really looking forward to your session. So if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining me. And today we're going to be chatting all about sponsorship trends and really what to expect in 2022 because it is a different landscape. As we know, the event industry will never be the same essentially because of what happened with COVID. Now, you've probably heard the word pivot, Ring in the Friends episode where they're pivoting the couch, and that's probably the word of 2021. But our world has changed, and we really have to be prepared in order to go into the next era of digital events, sponsorships, and what it looks like for a hybrid. So with that, let's start the journey. But just before I get into what the event industry looks like for 2022, just a reminder, I've been in this space for 17 years and I love everything to do with sponsorships. We've secured over 15 million sponsorships to date, and I'm just going to give you a little inside sneak peek of what the sponsors are looking for as we approach the hybrid world. So there's a saying, right? Let's not have a crisis go to waste. And our industry didn't, as you know, look at us now, ETL right now, right? We found a solution to an impossible situation. Was it hard? Yes, for sure. Did we come out stronger? I think so. So we're talking about post-COVID, 30% of meeting attendees, right? If you can see the stat here on the slides, would still prefer virtual participation, and 43% of attendees would opt face-to-face. Now, that's interesting to me, and that's really interesting to some sponsors as we speak to them on a daily basis, understanding what their goals and what they anticipate for 2022. So if you have, let's say, a 2,000 person event and 30% of your attendees are not coming to this event, right? That's 600 people that you don't have in the audience, right? But you have the potential to add, as we know, in a hybrid setting. So this is valuable, as I've seen in the trends with your financial bottom line to sponsorships, ROI, all those great analytics that they're looking for. So as we go into some more stats, right, we're looking at over half of event planners are currently or will soon be planning hybrid events. And of course, here we are in a hybrid event. Now, again, remember, looking at these stats and looking at what the trends are looking like, most sponsors will participate in a hybrid event, only if they get access to both audiences. And so, I mean, let's be honest, everyone loves virtual events. I love virtual events, especially sponsors that are getting that rich data. So the caveat is sponsors want connection, right? And like I said, most sponsors, the good news is that they're still interested in participating in a hybrid event and over 80% in a virtual event. So remember, even if your events in the future are not in person, depending on where you are in the world, how do we make that happen? How do we have that kind of realistic connection? And why are they so adamant? I mean, put it in the chat if you've heard that connection is best in person. There's this relationship building experience. Do they just want reach? What do they actually want, right? So as we know, right, sponsorship is going to continue to evolve, and sponsors need meaningful connections regardless of the event type. So I don't want you to go away with this as thinking, okay, sponsors just want that in-person connection. Yes, some of them do, but most of them really looking at the overall connection and commitment from the event itself. So let's play a game, because I love games. I love interacting with who is watching. I don't want you to think of this game as a end all and be all, but I want you to see the value of it. So are we ready to play this game? Quickly in the chat if you're here. And how many logos can you remember? I know I flipped through it quickly, but this is just an idea of that logos, you know this, right? Logos, hopefully you know this, are out, right? Logos, awareness, putting a logo up on a website is great, but that's not what sponsors want. And I've heard that time and time again. It's interesting because in person, right, building relationships is sometimes hard to measure versus a virtual event. You're looking at analytics, you're looking at stacked digital platforms with ROI for days, analytics and numbers, and you can get into that. But there is the difference between that art of in-person event engagement and the science of the virtual data-driven event. So the old way of sponsorship doesn't work. So how do you take this and implement it? Well, a lot of, and again, I still told you this old school sponsorship benefits are no longer relevant, and they're no longer valuable to sponsors. And that's what I'm here for. We're going to try to reinvent the sponsorship strategy that everybody is looking for, and it's really time to personalize if you haven't already. So let's try to put ourselves in the sponsor's shoes. And while that's great, nobody knows what your sponsors want except for your sponsors. And I say the key to selling sponsorship in the hybrid age is to have open conversations and ask questions that will help identify and create that high value sponsorship activation that will help your sponsor achieve that ROI, whatever it may look like for them. So that could be intimate connection with your aligned audiences. That could be through thought leadership opportunities, concrete ROI through product sales, and general brand awareness generation or public relation opportunities. And so the idea is that we want to make sure that we are asking these questions, and we are asking them in depth, open-ended questions so that they're able to respond as to exactly what they're looking for. Again, it's not up to you to determine what they want. So questions and open-ended questions are very, very important as you're going to determine your sponsorship valuation for the 2022 year. Start with when, what, how, and why to uncover the historic details that you need to close the sale, right? If you're on this and you've already checked this off your list, it's still time to put your listening ears on. I've eavesdropped in many sponsored conversations where the person on the other end, not the sponsor itself, but the client is talking and saying how great their event is, and there's no time for the sponsor to get in a word in edgewise. So your job is to ask the questions and really intently listen. I know we can get nervous. I know it's easy to babble. I've done that before. But if you're looking at a unique proposition for your event, right, you know exactly what they'll be looking for. You could be leaving money on the table because you're not listening. We don't want that, right? Obviously not. So I'll share some questions you can take into your next sponsor meeting that will get results like they have for me, right? So to learn what you need to approach is when do you plan their sponsorship budgets for the year, the sponsor itself? What kind of opportunity can you look for in the future? Many times that timeline is very, very tight. 2 to 3 months in advance is not enough time to approach a sponsor. We're looking at 8+ months, especially for a hybrid option. Virtually, you can definitely go into a 4-month time frame, but essentially you're going to want that time, and you're going to want to understand when do your sponsorship budgets for the companies themselves. It could be different, could be mid-year, could be end of the year. So you want to make sure you're getting into the sponsor budget fully and thoroughly before that time frame. Going into the conversation with your sponsor is right to understand what they're looking for. You're going to start brainstorming your offer. What was the absolute best activation? Take a screenshot of this. You've participated, in your opinion, and why. So this is a great question to ask your potential sponsor. And even if the answer is no, not right now, this is still great to learn and to accept what has worked for them in the past. What does ROI look like for you? Is it different when you're talking virtual activations versus live activations? And what did you decide to sign on with your last large sponsorship? Why did they sign on? What was the driving point to them saying yes? And what does your mix of live and virtual sponsorship activations look like now? And what percentage are you doing of each? Again, getting this information, being in the know is very, very important as you coming into that sponsorship conversation. And then again, learn how they connect. Learn how they connect with their audience and how that offer relates to what you can offer. Because it's all about alignment. That's the word of the year. It's the alignment. And in the past, absolutely 100%, but now more than ever, the alignment is the most important key part. How does your audience usually engage with your brand? Because again, if they are listening to podcasts versus blogs, perhaps that your podcast could be a great interaction tool before or after their event. What activations do you think would speak to your target audience best based upon where you've seen the greatest results in the past? Again, this information is very, very vital. And what do you want your audience to take away from your virtual or physical space when sponsoring an event? So these are great questions to really drive forward the conversation in a very open-ended way. Start with if to uncover exactly what they want now and in the future. So if budget and resources aren't a concern, what would your ideal sponsorship partnership look like? And again, take those questions with a grain of salt. Pick the ones that are, easily developed into your brand and into your event. If there are no limits on technology and creativity, what kind of activation would you create for your brand? And if you had to choose between virtual or person, what would you go for and why? So collect these questions and then pull them as to what are your top 3 most important parts. So here's a real sponsor highlight. And we're going to talk about what they have wanted. And you can find this information online. This is public information. So for instance, Podia is an online-based cloud software program for memberships and courses and online downloads and resources. And their top 3 things that they're looking for are engagement, exclusivity, and audience fit. And this came right from the sponsor themselves. So really think about what that particular sponsor is looking for versus maybe another sponsor. It could be audience fit first, it could be engagement, and it could be virtual versus in person. So the idea is that every sponsor, of course, is different, but that really helps to uncover what your sponsor tick is the goal, right? What is the goal of the call? So here's another sponsor portfolio highlight, Tailwind, again, public information, but audience alignment, repeated actionable exposure for community building, and natural activations, not forced or overly salesy. Super important because Tailwind is a very community-based brand versus maybe a more analytic left side of the brain, numbers power type of company. So very different companies and very different examples. Now, the future of sponsorship lies in the customization. I keep saying this, and I see this happening from event to event. Large event tech events like this, technology companies, of course, they're going to look at ROI, but it's great to have those packages pre-assembled to see what's possible. And there's always going to be that customization that comes into effect after. So the goal is to design memorable, okay, activations that spark connection. Don't discount. I've seen a lot of people discount because of COVID. I've seen a lot of people 20% off virtual, and I would love to see more of that production of the high value, bringing the sponsor from the first point of touch of conversations and communications to the very last point, to have that high touch sponsor concierge type of service, so that they're not left saying, hey, we've signed the dotted line, we've given you the money, and now we're kind of left to our own devices. So remember the memorable activations, but also the providing the value between the relationship now, during the event, and as well as after the event. So we're looking at some stats, right? We're looking, this is a great kind of idea, and kind of a great chart of all of the hook, the peaks, and this is the arrival of the sponsor. We're going down into a lull. You know, the kind of relationship, or the waves of the sponsorship, where they come on, they're hooked, they've signed. And then we want to think about that moment where that's the moment is the event, and then the post-event. So this type of engagement is great because they have that relationship during, before, and after the event, as I had mentioned. I really want to understand and think about the 2022 trends and how you can go into 2022 prepared and getting more sponsorship dollars. And remember the interest curve, as we're looking at here, you have to prompt the attendee to engage. You have to excite them to a point where they want to interact, and surprise them with something useful, beneficial, problem solving, and then have a plan for them, how to keep them engaged after the event. That is how you design a memorable and effective relationship. This could also be applied to an activation during the event. This could be applied to a lot of different scenarios, but I love this interest curve because this is what happens during a sponsorship relationship as well as an effective activation. So customize your activation, listen to your sponsor as noted in the previous slides, and also keep in mind that I remember one of my podcast interviews, I was interviewing a sponsor, and they said, listen, Alicia, I'm just a human. And I thought, well, that's really simplistic. But at the end of the day, they were just human. They just wanted to be treated like one, and they wanted it to be a very human-to-human relationship. And that example that I'm going to bring in is all of my sponsors, or my top sponsors, I should say, I know them by name, obviously, hopefully, and we know their families, we know their kids' birthdays sometimes, and we exchange Christmas cards. And that is how my relationships look like with my sponsors, hopefully past, present, and future. So actionable ideas that I want you to add and think about for your custom proposals, or even creating custom proposals based off of your tiered sponsorship currently. And let's talk about technology, because we're Event Tech Live here. We're looking at technology. We're looking at some amazing examples that could bring into the 2022 world. Smartphone-driven QR codes. I mean, drive gamification. You've probably seen this. Attendees on site or virtually have to scan that QR code, right? And it's easily integrated into just general event tech. Sponsors are really going for this right now, and we're adding some to our portfolio, especially with the gamification sponsor or technology sponsor, as I've seen sometimes. This doesn't take many resources or manpower to create, but this sometimes is a great idea for sponsors to come in and do something fun. Interactive floor displays. And I'll give you an example actually for the QR code, as I just triggered a thought. Sephora, so they held a brand activation in Kohl's parking lot, if you didn't know, to celebrate the launch of two brands partnerships. And the result was a beauty maze in which people had to use their smartphones to navigate a touch-free interactive experience. And that outdoor maze also featured 8 different QR code generated experiences, which they can interact with booths, and really take those fun quizzes, and get that caveat, Instagram moment, if you will. So because it was low touch outdoor experience, the event naturally enforced a safe environment, which again, depending on the sponsor, that could also need. Interactive floor displays, something people don't see often. I mean, they are coming back actually, but they're costly maybe to implement, maybe high sponsorships only, depending on what event tech you're using, virtual platforms. And I've used 80 platforms. Gesture-based engagements. So example, Cisco hosted a dance wall where you bust a move and it turned it into a custom GIF. Amazing. It got people talking, engaging, and Cisco, it made them a little less stiff and a little younger, appealing to the audiences. So they captured emails by asking if they wanted to send the GIF sent to them after. What an incredible way to capture data, have fun, and be more technology driven, focused in a touchless environment. Now, again, exclusive micro experiences. Last winter, American Express and its subsidiary Reezy teamed up to help the industry of restaurants, because it was hit hard, obviously. And they included an exclusive memorable COVID-safe experiences for card members. And through a series of outdoor yurt villages across 13 cities, members could book reservations for unique dining experiences where, there was a setup with outside restaurants, safely accommodating up to 6 guests. And so you get the idea that these are outside of the box thinking for exclusive micro experiences. In Chicago, the brands work with local events and decor companies to design the yurts, which had each distinct decor inspired by various decades. I mean, brilliant ideas here. I can go on. One-to-one media roundtable robins, something that's happening here in Event Tech Live. And then, of course, facility tours with CEOs off-site. So, these are ideas, and they're very well pulled through in these examples. So again, just to recap what sponsors want: virtual activation ideas for both virtual and hybrid events. As I'm talking to some of these sponsors, for 2022, some big tech conferences, they want to see both virtual and hybrid. They want to be able to bring it back to their team, discuss what works for them at that point, and then make a decision. Okay, so couple of last points that I want to talk about are engagements from Afar. So branded, promo emails sent from event organizers, branded catering delivered for mealtime participation. We did that yesterday at a large PepsiCo event. Virtual one-on-one product demos. I mean, people go nuts for these. Same kind of idea, but your event's success starts at the end of this event. Right? As we mentioned with the interest curve, as you saw, you need a robust sponsorship follow-up plan and activations, and bringing that relationship, again, from inception to delivering the event to after the event. Okay, so keep that in mind, what sponsors want: full hybrid activation ideas, and take a screenshot, make a note for yourself, because if you are just creating one experience, you're going to miss out on the next. We had, and again, this is all from challenges we've encountered and relationships and conversations we've had with sponsors. A few other interactive from anywhere. Take a screenshot. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but feel free to connect with me on all of these amazing type of experiences that we've created for our events. So mixed reality holograms and 3D projections, smartphone-based augmented realities, giveaways, and then small hybrid focus groups and with virtual and live attendees. Education delivered, live and streamed virtually simultaneously, right? Again, we're a great example of this right now at Event Tech Live. And you want to think about some of these sessions and training opportunities that are available. And again, going beyond this sponsor training opportunities, that's great, but what does that actually mean? And how can it be applied and customized to your sponsor coming in? So thinking about and brainstorming what type of product demonstration and what creative outside of the box marketing opportunities can you create for your sponsors? And be armed with that information during a call. So if they're asking you, and you're asking all these questions that you've heard me talk about, and they're coming back and they're saying, okay, how does that apply to me? Or how can you integrate that into our next event? You're armed with the opportunity of saying, hey, what about a QR code maze or scavenger hunt throughout? What about finding little transformers on PowerPoint presentations and then winning a prize? So coming up with those ideas and out of the box thinking will help put you ahead of the sponsorship game. All right. So, the future is now. The future starts now. I mean, this is a fun slide, but also, right, you want to think about the relationship through and through, and not just saying thank you to the sponsors and goodbye forever, right? You want to think about really nurturing that relationship to the next type of event, whether that is next year you have another event coming, you have small mini events and activations throughout the year, podcast collaborations, thinking about maybe even doing a very one-to-one type of opportunity for your sponsors and all of your exclusive, C-suite executives, exclusive, cocktail night, okay? So designing your events for attendees, also designing them for your sponsors, has to be integrated. And they want actionable activations that create connections. So static displays, right, very much ineffective, won't get you anywhere. It's about listening and asking the right questions and then customizing accordingly. High-tech activations, touchless opportunities, and multimedia engagement is the way to go for 2022. You need an effective follow-up plan as well, and not just saying thank you, as I mentioned, but keep your sponsors highly engaged year-round, sending them an email, sending them a voice note, using technology to send them a email video campaign throughout the year. That is something that will keep your sponsors engaged and coming back to your next events. So I thank you so much for joining me today. If there's any questions, feel free to add them into the chat. Feel free to pop them in. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Alicia May. I'm happy to listen to all of your sponsorship journey, challenges, wins, and I'd love to see you on the other side of sponsorship for 2022. And have a great time the rest of your Event Tech Live journey. Thanks so much.
Alicia, fantastic stuff. Thanks so much for your time and that presentation there. As well as Alicia said, if you have got an immediate question, get it in the chat now. I've been jotting down some notes as you've been delivering that. Things I really like. One thing that massively stood out for me was when you said, your clients just said, I'm just a human. That's what we want. We want that human conversation, that human connection. I think that's a massive thing that, now the world has gone so digital, so virtual. At the end of the day, we're talking to a person. That's the way we need to communicate with them. I think that was a really good point, well made. Alicia, just before you do go, we've just got a comment from Shani there saying that was great. Thank you very much. So that's good to hear that you are enjoying it and finding this valuable. I just wanted to ask you, Alicia, obviously this is a tech-focused event. Do you think there's anything, any piece of technology, piece of software perhaps that is being massively underutilized at the moment? Is something really standing out in your mind at the minute that you just think, we really should be jumping on that and using that to its more potential than it actually is at the moment?
I think a lot of sponsors need that hand-holding experience, though, right? As they come on and they are using tech more and more. Again, you'd be surprised that some sponsors are very much tech averse. They're not very focused on tech. They don't know how to use a basic platform, and that's okay. But you're going to need to hand-hold them. So whatever underutilized technology you're going to, whether that's gamification, I think that's very much underutilized because gamification equals fun. Sponsors love fun. 75% of our sponsors really want to have that fun engagement and not just the boring, presentations on a select keynote. They want that engagement. So I think that's the most important thing that I've heard over the past couple of months. But also handhold your sponsors throughout the technology because they're not going to be all tech focused like we are.
Fantastic. No, I totally agree with that, and I'm glad you dropped the F bomb in there. I feel like in the virtual world that often gets overlooked. It's almost as underused as the actual another F word, but we won't mention that. But I do think like you say, get the fun element in there. We want that emotional connection, and whatever ideas you go with, whatever strategy you do, if people are having fun, they're going to have that positive interaction with you. So, Alicia, really, really interesting. And like Alicia said, if you want to connect with her, you can do it on the platform here or get on LinkedIn as well. Alicia, thanks so much once again for your time and joining us today and being part of Event Tech Live 2021.
Thank you so much.
So coming up next on the main stage, we're going to have a bit of a break now. If you do need a bit of a screen break, this is the time to do it. If you need to go and get yourself a drink, maybe you've not quite had your lunch yet, go and grab yourself some food. Our next presentation is at 3:30 today. That's going to be leveraging live streaming technology for engaging events. Gives me an hour to learn how to say that line properly, but we will be seeing you back here then. I say, if you want to learn about some more of the products from our exhibitors, we're going to be playing some tech demonstrations until then. But take a bit of a break if you need to. We look forward to seeing you back here at 3:30 for the next session. See you then. Super. Go.